Hey everybody, it's David, host of Highway to Health podcast series. We're having a fun day. We're at Billy Bob's in downtown Fort Worth, next to the stockyards. And 200 years ago, this was the hub. This was the mecca for the cattle trade. Almost 160 million head of cattle went through these streets, this stockyard. And today, now, DFW, Fort Worth, is turning into a little bit more of a healthcare hub than a cattle trade hub. But that's okay. It's good for the community. It's important to the patient community. We've got some of the best iconic brands in healthcare right here in DFW, and I'm lucky enough to have a few on the show today. We've talked revenue cycle. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of on-site imaging for our clinics, for our practitioners, for our doctors, what that means to their business, but also what it means to the patient community, the access to the care, to the services that they need, but also how it can improve their outcomes in their healthcare journey. I'm stoked. I'm honored to have Adam Kraser, who leads HealthSpry, talk about these topics. And thank you for being here, man. I'm excited for this.
It's my pleasure, David. Thanks for having me on.
Billy Bob's. You've been to Billy Bob's before?
Absolutely, man. It's a staple. You got to come to Billy Bob's.
Whether it's, I've said this over and over again, but George Strait, Willie Nelson, Garth Brooks, some of the best to ever do it have been on this stage.
They've all come here, man.
And now they get to say, we were on the same stage as David and Adam. You think they'll mention that next concert?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think they'll do it. So we're going to talk a little bit about healthcare, but really in DFW in general, this healthcare hub, this innovation hub that has taken place in DFW over the last 20 years is pretty inspiring. Before we get into HealthSpry, tell me a little bit about what this community has meant to you and your healthcare journey, your healthcare career.
Sure. I got my start in DFW. I started working for a large blue chip med device company called Stryker.
Stryker, never heard of them.
Yes. Well, my experience was uniquely interesting because of the product I was selling. I sold trauma implants for, you break a bone, we'll fix it. So you can imagine the exposure I got and the veil that was lifted off healthcare environment, ecosystem, whenever you're dealing with trauma patients, very unpredictable cases. So I got to get acquainted with a lot of very, very well-skilled practitioners here that fix bones all the time. They always would call themselves highly paid carpenters for what they would do. But
screws and nails, huh?
Screws, nails, rods, yes, plates, everything. So that's what I cut my teeth on. So I got acquainted with a lot of practitioners, mostly in orthopedics, but I was at hospitals all over DFW. So I got to see the quality of healthcare, the resilience of the human body.
Yeah.
And got to fix people. So
you talk about an introduction to healthcare. You were in the OR?
I was, all day, every day, at all hours of the day.
So you saw every bit of it.
I did, man.
Human body's pretty amazing.
It is. It is.
You know what's the most resilient? Babies are the most resilient, I've got 4 kids, and I know you've got a few, and babies are super resilient, man. They fight off bacteria and diseases better than we ever do. It shows you how amazing the human body can be. You've seen it up close and personal.
Yes, I have.
So you started with Stryker. Tell me about the role that you're playing now with HealthSpry and how the DFW community is almost an unfair advantage for us that are in healthcare nowadays, because some of the best and brightest are right in our backyard.
I guess I'd start that question with telling you a little about what one of my mentors used to tell me, and that is 50% of everything or anything is making it a priority. So I would say that for the last several decades, DFW has really made it a priority to be a healthcare med device innovation hub.
Yeah.
You have access to capital. You have these incubators like Health Wildcatters. Yeah. And what I would say is probably the bedrock of bringing innovation to an area and spurring it on is tech transfer and technology commercialization out of these institutions. We've got UT Southwestern.
Yep.
We've got Baylor. We've even got Parkland that has made it a point to commercialize these inventions, these technologies out of these institutions and making them companies. And so I'd give one more thought to that, which is the softball answer of why it's increased here. And that is because of all the influx, the great migration to Texas. It's happened all over the state. But DFW is unique because there have been a lot of headliner med device companies that have relocated here, put bigger offices here.
Smith and Nephew's right down the road
right?
here.
Exactly. Yes. Companies like Smith have brought not only their ecosystem but their talent also.
Sure.
And with HealthSpry, we're no different. Like I said, I've had a background in orthopedics. I saw a need for surgeons to be able to keep more of the business that they have fairly earned within their practice. So HealthSpry is a manufacturer and distributor of smaller, what we call dedicated or permanent magnet MRI systems that do not take all the requirements necessary for these big barrel units you see in hospitals. These are smaller and they can actually fit in that surgeon's practice.
Take us back 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Before HealthSpries and the others that offer something similar. What did it look like for these orthopedists when a patient came in that needed services that are now available on site?
Sure.
What did they have to go through?
Yeah. Referrals out. They would always have to farm this out. So you saw networks of imaging centers, privately held, some were, an add-on to hospitals, but like it or not, if that patient's going in to get evaluated by a surgeon, they're sending them out to get that imaging. Definitely not same day. So it was a hassle depending on geography for that patient. Let's say they commuted in from, let's say, Weatherford or Brock, right? They're coming into DFW and they got to go back home and then come back. So it was just very cumbersome for the patient.
Which, the experience isn't great. And I have personal experience with this. My 12-year-old son just broke his arm.
Sure.
And we were fortunate enough to go into a facility that right down the hallway, we could get images, we could get pictures. 20 minutes later, we're looking at the images on the screen and working through the treatment plan, the journey that he was about to be on. But in the old days, before these innovations, before the opportunity was there, you're right. He would have to miss another day of school. We'd have to miss another day of work. We'd have to go see somebody else. And inevitably what happens is life happens in between those things. You miss an appointment. Maybe you go to somebody else that you weren't referred to, and leakage takes place. And leakage is important on the business side, but it's also important for the patient because then there's a delay in care, there's a delay in diagnosis, and the outcomes aren't what you expect.
Sure.
Let's talk about the business side first. What you're really addressing here is patient revenue leakage for these clinics, for these orthopedists, which you mentioned it, they fairly earned it up to this point.
Yeah.
How are you partnering with these clinics, these orthopedists, to deliver the right kind of care, but also deliver the means and the returns to their business that they've built their careers around?
Sure. So these surgeons, especially the ones that own their own practice, right? And you see that less and less. A lot of these surgeons are
owned,
succumbing from the pressure and either selling out or, yes, being employed directly by the hospital. But there are some still hanging on, and we've got to do right by them. So they are looking day to day at their insurance reimbursement levels. Historically, they've been more and more squeezed by insurance companies saying we're going to pay less and less for certain procedures. So they are looking for other ways to pull some of that money back in. Exactly, right. And imaging is a big one, especially for orthopedic surgeons. So what we do with this is we partner with them. There are a number of ways we can get these units in their practice.
Okay.
It all depends on what they're comfortable with, their patient traffic, how many patients they're seeing that would warrant imaging, and also their insurance mix. What kind of patients are they seeing?
Yeah, payer mix.
Exactly, payer mix. What type of insurances are they seeing? But at the end of the day, what we want to do is help them create another revenue stream that should already be theirs in the first place. So what we like to do is find that surgeon that has a big enough of a footprint in their clinic to justify, hey, I don't use this exam room often enough. I think we could clear it out and make space for this unit and have another profit center. So it's not only about the profits, right? It's also about quality of care for the patient.
Absolutely. Immediacy of care.
Yes.
Which, is probably the part that I'm most passionate about, right? Because we're all patients at the end of the day.
Sure.
You talked about a few important elements in the partners that you work with, whether they're, an independent physician, what their payer mix looks like, all of those things. Geographical, location has to be a big part of it too. You mentioned Weatherford and Brock. I'm out here, west of Fort Worth. For us to drive into Fort Worth is a 40-minute drive for us. It would be much more convenient for the patients to have those services available. How much attention do you pay to the geographical location of some of these clinics?
I mean, it's everything, right? I think that if we can, the more of these units that we place, especially in strategic geographic areas, the better it's going to be for that patient flow, patient traffic, and the patient experience. I think with the advent, if I can say that, the advent of Amazon. I mean, you see Amazon diversifying into healthcare.
Yeah, they are.
So with all of this instant gratification that we've seen in other parts of our lives, we want that in healthcare too.
Yeah.
And so the geography is important because that allows that patient to wrap it up and get what they need instantaneously in a geography that's convenient for them.
Yeah, our experience in other areas or walks of life is now our expectation everywhere. And healthcare has no excuses now.
Yes.
We've got to meet those expectations.
Sure.
And you're doing it. You're helping do that. HealthSpry is a big part of that experience and those outcomes. What challenges do your orthopedists come to you and talk to you about outside of leakage and experience? What other challenges are you helping them address in their practice?
So a big one is what a lot of physicians face, and that is efficiency and making sure that they do not have leakage and insurance claims that are not being catered to, right? They have revenue that is going out the door and they don't realize it. And so not only making their service offering better and more diversified, but also making sure that they're a good business, because a lot of them lack that, honestly.
Well, they didn't get into healthcare to be a business person.
Exactly. And so what we want to do is make them better all the way around. So HealthSpry, yes, we are an imaging company first, but we also want to make these physicians better business people and make sure that they are running an efficient and well-oiled machine so their revenue can improve all over the place.
And revenue is good for the provider, the orthopedist, for a lot of reasons. Obviously, we all want to be paid what we've earned, right?
Sure.
In any walk of life or any career that we have. But the bottom line is it helps them keep their doors open. And exactly. Without that, the community doesn't have what they need to get the services or the care that they need.
Exactly. Yes.
What about staffing? Something that we hear, and it doesn't matter what area or subvertical of healthcare I talk to or talk about, staffing has become harder and harder.
Yes, it has.
By adding on-site imaging is a common objection that you get. Well, I don't have the people to staff this type of technology. How do you handle those kind of conversations?
So in-office imaging is unique because we have a series of training programs that actually allows that surgeon to leverage the staff they already have. So historically, you would need an MRI tech that was certified to take these images. Whereas with in-office imaging, there is an accreditation component to this that allows an X-ray technician that's already employed by that surgeon to be trained up to take these images.
Upworking, for the lack of a better term, upward mobility for the staff that they have in-house.
And it's a benefit for them because they're acquiring a new skill set. With that new skill set does come a bump in pay. And yes, there could be pushback on that, but we're also bringing in that new profit center, right? So it's justified compared to a traditional MRI technician.
Yeah, absolutely. Like anything. Scared money don't make money. And you may have to pay that technician a little bit more, but that revenue's coming in your door,
sure,
not somebody else's.
Absolutely.
So I'm always fascinated by this because new technology, innovation in healthcare is happening literally every day, and we're sitting in the hub of it. But these orthopedists, these clinicians, that it's not their job to stay up to date with everything that's happening in healthcare, all the innovations that are becoming available. their main job, like you said, is to take care of the patients that they've earned the right to see and care for. How are they staying up to date, educated, informed on innovations and new opportunities like health spray?
Sure. You're absolutely right. I think if we, the name of the book escapes me, but it talks about they're entrepreneurs, right? They own their own shop, but they're busy working in the business, not on the business. Working on the business you'd want to stay apprised of all these new innovations. But I think, by and large, it's the industry that has to come to them and educate them.
Yep.
And that can happen in a number of ways. Media is a huge one.
I agree with
Online
that.
media is huge because they don't have the time to schedule a bunch of meetings in services, and they only have enough room in their bellies for, Lupe tortilla or whatever sales rep's going to bring them, right? So online media is important, and not all these physicians can go to events like AAOS.
You're right.
Where they would get educated. And so I think what media, especially online media, has played a critical role in the education aspect. I wish that there was more.
Well, the thing with media is it's available anytime and from anywhere. And so these orthopedists, they've got families too. They get home, they eat dinner, they put the kids to bed, and it may be 9 o'clock at night before they can start finding solutions or answers to the questions that they have about their practice, about their business. You mentioned AAOS, great show, great academy. We'll both be there in a few weeks.
Yes, we will.
The challenge with that, and the challenge with really any show and event conference, is that's 3 or 4 days out of your business. Expenses also are included in there. And it makes it a cumbersome way to get the information that you need when you need it. And it's not necessarily as scalable as some of these busy, healthcare providers actually are. And so in a way, we have to meet, the solutions that you and I have been involved with. We have to meet our community where they are. And a lot of times they're learning how to fix their kitchen sink through media. They may as well learn how to fix their business and make their business as efficient as possible through media.
Sure.
How do these orthopedists like to learn? Who do they trust? Is it you, or is it other members of their community? Whose word do they trust the most?
It's all about relationships, right? But by and large, what I've seen is physicians get approached all the time for new opportunities, new whiz-bang ways to earn money or increase their business, the technology in their business. What they trust is other physicians that have been there. Yeah. And so I think that having that avenue, that ability to bring them together is huge.
Yeah. And healthcare is one of the rare industries where people don't necessarily want to be first in healthcare. First means unproven, untrusted, untested. Yeah. A lot of times, the people we work with in healthcare, what they provide for their patient community, they want to be trial tested and proven. And hearing some of that feedback and that education from somebody who's been there before, experienced it before, builds a lot of trust and credibility.
Sure.
How do you get these physicians talking to each other? Are they giving away trade secrets?
Depends on how many beers they've had.
We should get them here to Billy Bob's.
That's a good idea. That's a great venue for it. It starts locally, right? Physicians, they've got friends that they've, been in practice with, partners. But I think, like I said, they're all busy. And so I think, again, we're coming back to the media narrative of being able to rally them around certain aspects of a business venture or way to do things virtually.
Yeah.
And I think we saw a lot of that during COVID, and it's really cemented a lot of new ways of doing things.
Yeah, it's familiarized ourselves with, engaging through media or virtually, sure, which has also scaled that reach. And it's awesome to see some of these clinicians, some of these orthopedists take this opportunity and position themselves as a thought leader across the industry.
Yes, agreed.
I mean, they've put the schooling in. They've done the work.
They have. Now they've got to leverage it, and this gives them a voice with a lot less cumbersome avenues of having to commute somewhere to do it. They can do it in real time anywhere. So
I'd agree there. Let's talk about the patient experience and patient outcomes a little bit, because I would imagine there's some questions on, okay, how much does this actually improve the access to care, the experience while getting the care, and then the outcomes at the end of it.
Sure.
How have you seen some of on-site imaging pay off in that regard?
You know, it goes back to our one for instant gratification, right? These patients come in, and with access to on-site imaging, they're able to get a very accurate diagnosis same day, instantly, or commute back to an imaging center back and forth. It's that day. Yeah. And so that not only does it benefit the patient in having, some answers, but it also benefits that surgeon in saying, okay, this is how we're going to fix this. Yeah. And they get to go over that day. And so less opportunity for scar tissue to form, less opportunity for, those joints or whatever injury they're dealing with to do any more damage, right? So they can schedule whatever needs to be done faster. And that means the world to the patient, obviously.
And patients are, when we go shopping,
yeah,
we see ourselves as the expert. We know what we want, we know what we need, and if a salesperson or anybody tries to tell us differently, we have our own opinions. In healthcare, it's not that way. When we walk into a clinic, we're looking for guidance from the true professional. In a way, you're empowering these orthopedists, these clinicians to be that guide right there, right then, when the patient needs it and is demanding it the most.
Sure, absolutely.
That's a huge benefit. And it helps. You could argue that you're helping these providers deliver the kind of care, the level of care they got in the business to do and to be a part of.
Absolutely, man. That's the idea.
That's an exciting way that innovation has bridged the gap for our patients and our provider community. You've been to Billy Bob's.
I have, yes.
Favorite story? One that you can share on air.
I guess, yeah, at Billy Bob's, this is the first time that I actually really tried to two-step country dance with my now wife. So
how'd it go?
It was awful, terrible. I am not a dancer. I wish I would have made more of an effort because she is very good. She is, but she gives me a pass.
You won her over anyway, huh?
I did. We came here to see Eli Young Band.
Oh yeah, EYB.
Yes. And Josh Abbott opened for him. So,
my wife and I may have been here that same night.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
We were here with Josh Abbott, Eli Young Band, and then we've been here with Robert Earl Keen and a few others. Okay. We just live down the road, as you know. But
yes.
It's one of our favorite places. And like you, I'm not a dancer, but she is, and so you grit your teeth, you embarrass yourself.
Should we take some lessons? Maybe.
Probably should.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, we probably need to.
Nice.
Well, man, I appreciate you being here. And
it's my pleasure.
Before I let you go, just for our community, provide a little bit of guidance, inspiration for them. We've talked a lot about the innovation, the technology that's coming, and a lot of it is right here in our backyard in DFW.
Sure.
For those that are in DFW, for those that aren't, what advice would you give our community when looking for solutions to solve challenges in their business?
I think the biggest glaring piece of advice would be to get out there and network, talk, build those relationships, because not to go back to the old COVID narrative, but people shut that down a lot. And so having those face-to-face conversations, getting on those media platforms that are, active and pinpoint your needs, find those, because you're not going to learn on your own, right? Being educated by people that have been there, pulling those little kernels of information, those Easter eggs of information that they've got that you may not have, can definitely encourage and spur your mind into, furthering whatever you're looking for. It's knowledge, right?
I think that's good advice. And healthcare is, it's a tight-knit community. It's a big industry.
You're right.
But, what I've seen and what I've been inspired by recently is the collaboration that's starting to happen, because we're all in this together, and we're all driving towards the same goal.
That's right.
And so let's work together. Let's talk to people. Let's build relationships. It'll only make it better.
100%, man.
Appreciate you being here, dude.
It's my pleasure.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too, brother. Thank you.